Alright guys, welcome to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host, Flavo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright, so UFC Vegas 76 is officially in the books, guys. We are 24 Apex fight cards away from the triumph of UFC Vegas 100. That's probably not going to happen until give or take 2026, if anything like that. We got a long ways to go. But anyways, so UFC Vegas 76 headlined by Sean Strickland versus Abus Magomedov. This was a very interesting scheduled fight because of the fact that we didn't know who really Abus Magomedov was outside of the fact that he is from Dagestan. He resides in Germany. And Sean Strickland's going to be on this fight, and anytime Sean Strickland's on a fight, a lot of people, especially media members, they get a little bit intrigued because they could ask Sean questions, and they know that Sean is going to be one of those people who will just say whatever is on his mind. Now, I will not discuss what Sean has said. All right, I am not trying to get monetized. I'm not trying to get canceled, but at the same moment, you guys know where to find, the Sean Strickland interviews. All right. But that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about the fights. And man, oh man, what's it called? Sean Strickland did not expect that type of a performance because of the fact that Strickland, he is the definition of a fighter who is, deaths by 100 paper cuts. And what I mean about that is that Sean Strickland, I'm not saying he's a pillow puncher, but he is one of those that he would jab you to death. He would throw that right hand, just throw one in, bring it back. Throw one in, bring it back. Throw one in, bring it back. And he will hurt you and compile points in that manner and cruise to a victory. Now, that was not the case this time because he knew that, Abus Magomedov, had pretty much 5 minutes to try to finish Sean Strickland. And he came up very aggressive, throwing T-kicks, throwing front kicks, trying to attack the legs and stuff like that. And Strickland was just marching forward on how he normally does in every single fight. Strickland has shown that he will try to cut off the octagon and make sure that your back is against the wall. All right, figurative and literally. Okay, and Abus Magomedov at one point tried throwing a punch, missed, extended out, fingers out, right, and I believe it was the left index finger of Abus Magomedov went straight into the eye of Sean Strickland. Now, I was actually very displeased by that because we just saw that the previous fight card with in Jacksonville when Austin Lane fought Justin Tafa. And I'm like, come on, guys. You guys just saw how bad an eye poke is, all right? And you guys need to stop leaving your fingers out there. You're going to end up You're going to end up blinding somebody, all right? And it's going to really come down to maybe a career-ending injury, all right? Strickland did say in the post-fight interview and the post-press conference that he was seeing double vision, but he didn't want to back out because of the fact that Michael Bisping ended up winning a fight. Ended up winning a title with one eye, and he felt that he can muscle through it, and he was able to because in round 2 he really did pick it up, and he was just jabbing, hurting, being very calculated on his striking, being very, persistent. Sure, he probably took maybe about like 1 or 2 seriously good punches from Abus Magomedov, but at the same token, Strickland was just cutting off the octagon and making it very difficult for Abus to, try to develop, using his old arsenal, which is, being very kick-oriented. And you really can't establish yourself really good with kicks if you're being cut off and you constantly have to keep on going backwards. So, smart on Strickland. Strickland was able to take advantage of that, land a couple of flurries, dropping Magomedov down to the floor, and then pounding him up until the fact the referee pulled him off. And now Strickland ends up getting his first knockout victory in quite some time. I can't remember the last time he actually got a knockout, let alone in the UFC. Probably had to be, before the motorcycle accident. But usually a Sean Strickland type of a fight would result in a fight that, he would just, jab you to death up until the final bell, going, either all 3 rounds or all 5 rounds. And it's really interesting what's going to transpire after this card, because of the fact that, Strickland puts himself in the driver's seat. A lot of people were thinking that he was just going to go all 5 rounds, but he really didn't, take so much damage outside of the eye poke. And I think the eye poke was the only big severity that came out of it, was just because, Strickland kept on saying that he kept on seeing double vision, but he still wanted to continue the fight, and he did continue the fight, and it showed that the double vision wasn't really that much of a big compromise as he must have thought he originally was going to have. But yeah, so Strickland now puts himself in the driver's seat on being one of the lead contenders to fight Israel Adesanya in Sydney. I believe it's on September 10th, if I'm not mistaken, or September 9th. Now, that's really interesting right there, because this week coming up, Robert Whittaker versus Dricus Du Plessis are both fighting. Now, if Du Plessis is able to get an easy victory against Robert Whittaker, which that is a tall task to even consider, then Du Plessis will be fighting Adesanya in Sydney in September for the middleweight title. Now, Strickland has never fought Adesanya. They have beef with one another. They have a storyline to tell that they could put out for UFC Countdown, and so on and so forth. So it'd be very interesting to see. I personally, as big as a Robert Whittaker fan that I am, I would not want to see a trilogy match, just because it really doesn't, serve, anybody the need to wanting to watch it. Just because, yes, even though the second fight was very, very close, it just wasn't, to the point where I felt like it was that necessary that we need to see it, right? We wanted to see, and we desperately needed to see a trilogy between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. And we clearly realized that, Alexander Volkanovski might just be the kryptonite for Max Holloway, and Israel Adesanya might just be the kryptonite for Robert Whittaker. So there's no reason why we should even try to entertain the fact that Whittaker should just go fight Adesanya for a trilogy. It is unfortunate for Whittaker, because he is really, really good, and he is the 1B at middleweight compared to Adesanya's 1A, and it'll be interesting to see what happens next week. But returning back to the card, I am very intrigued on the co-main event, because Grant Dawson ended up fighting Damir Ismagulov. Now, Damir Ismagulov, last time we saw him fight, he lost to Arman Tsarukyan, and then he had said the very next day after losing to Tsarukyan that he was going to retire. Well, he comes out of retirement to try to fight Grant Dawson, and man, even if Ismagulov had all the motivation in the world to try to end his career on a high note, by victory, it just wasn't enough, because Grant Dawson just went in there and really just held it down and out-wrestled Damir Ismagulov. Now, Damir Ismagulov, prior to the Arman Tsarukyan loss, I think he hasn't lost in like 7 or 8 years or something like that. Now he's back onto back-to-back losses on two of the most special lightweight contenders that we are having in a very Shark Tank type of a division. Grant Dawson had 12 minutes of ground control, all right, and just made life, really difficult for Damir Ismagulov. I just didn't expect that type of a fight, and it just opened my eyes and made me think, like, Grant Dawson is really, really good. Unfortunately, he's in the most stacked division in all of the UFC, where it's very, very little movement, all right, because it's usually a series of musical chairs with either Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, all right, and it's, Islam Makhachev, who have been rotating, trying to fight one another, all right, and it just sucks, because now I think that Grant Dawson, he might have to fight backwards, all right, as much as it just sucks, because he ends up fighting ranked 12 Damir Ismagulov. He's probably taking his 12th rank right there after him being from 15 to 12, so that's a good size jump. Unfortunately, it's a lot of people that try to hold very stagnant on their positions at lightweight, and it just seems that Grant Dawson might have to fight somebody unranked in his next fight, all right, because he has said it out there that he does not want to fight Hanada Moicano, doesn't want to fight Mateusz Gamrot, and does not want to fight Thiago Moises. He says he will fight Arman Tsarukyan for the right price, but a lot of those guys that I just mentioned, they train religiously at American Top Team in Florida. So I just think that it's unfortunate that Grant Dawson had announced that, because now it just seems like his options are very, very limited, and he won't be fighting somebody of a Michael Chandler. He won't be fighting a Justin Gaethje or a Dustin Poirier. He won't be fighting a Rafael Fiziev. All right, it's more than likely he's gonna have to fight outside of the rankings. All right, and as good as a fighter that Grant Dawson is, he just simply doesn't have that it factor that will allow UFC fans to be like, hey, we want this guy to get that push. Unfortunately, that's what you need once you're in the top 10 in the lightweight division. You just need to get that push. You need the fans to get behind you, and I just feel like it's not a lot of chirping noise, in my opinion, for people to say that Grant Dawson should be fighting, the upper echelon in lightweight. All right. Unfortunately, he might need to fight maybe by like 3 to 4 more times in order to get himself maybe a top 5 opponent. That's what my opinion is, but hey, to each his own, right? The feature bout, Max Griffin versus Michael Morales. Now, guys, I am half Ecuadorian, and I was rooting like crazy for Michael Morales, right? Michael Morales is one of those guys that, it gives a lot of Ecuadorians that, some type of a level of hope, because Chito Vera, a top 5, a top 4 bantamweight in the world. We've been seeing the level of success that he has had, as he's rising up the ranks in the 135-pound division. And Michael Morales going in his 3rd fight in the UFC. He fought Adam Fugit. He fought I gotta check the other guy, man. But he made his debut in UFC. It was when Ngannou ended up fighting Cyril Gane, right? That's when he ended up making his debut, and we just saw the levels of him excelling after each and every single one of his fights. And it's just very, very crazy to see how good and how special Michael Morales' future is, just because he took a little bit of a beating in round 1 against Max Griffin, right? Max Griffin is as game as they come. Now, going in round 2 and 3, his demeanor has changed. He was able to adapt and able to make the adjustments in between rounds, which is very, very critical for a young fighter like Michael Morales is. In between rounds, and it was very, very impressive to see, because we saw how he was able to utilize the grappling, the striking, all right, utilizing the power, all right. He also built some charisma in that factor, and it's just like, wow, like this kid has it. He is a very, very big welterweight. I don't know if he can make welterweight for the entirety of his UFC career. At some point, I do think that the kid is gonna have to go up to middleweight, and the future is bright. Unfortunately, right now, he might have to fight, another, mid-tier guy before he can, get close to a top 15 fighter. I'm predicting he might end up fighting somebody of a Tim Means, all right? Maybe a Matt Brown or something of that nature, right? He might have to face somebody of a veteran status, just because now he's gonna have to start making like little bits of leaps and jumps in his progression, all right? Pretty soon he might have to face your Alex Moronos of the world, your Chaos Williams, your Randy Browns, and then then he'll go into like the Muslim Salikov people, the Leech and stuff, and so on, all right? And I think Michael Morales has the ability to keep on climbing that ladder to succession. And I think maybe by the ending of 2024, we might see Michael Morales as a top 10 welterweight. How crazy is that? Michael Morales is a very great young prospect, and I just think that what he is able to perform, he has the potential of hitting the moon. All right, him, Ian Machado, Gary, the whole bunch, Jack Della Maddalena. I think those are going to be the futures of the welterweight division. The welterweight division is right now being run by Leon Edwards. We don't know when he's fighting next. Dana said it's going to be him against Colby. The date hasn't been announced yet, but man, welterweight is looking really, really good. Same thing as lightweight. And the last fight I wanted to talk about is Kevin Lee versus Renat Fakardimov, if I mispronounced his name. Man, now Kevin Lee, making his return back to the octagon after being cut after losing towards Daniel Rodriguez. And I've said it time and time again, Kevin Lee is a very good fighter, but unfortunately, he needs to be in a promotion that has a 165-pound division. Reason why I say that, for some reason, 155 is a very difficult cut for him. He says he can't make it. But 170, you see the difference on fighters on height, length, and whatever. All right, on from 155 to 170, and Kevin Lee is way too small to be fighting at 170. All right, you saw the difference when he fought Daniel Rodriguez, and you saw the difference when he fought Renat Farakardimov because it wasn't even a competition whatsoever. Now I don't know if it's just because of the fight years that Kevin Lee has accumulated, or it's just because he was too small, but the difference in size, it looked like Renat was maybe like a middleweight, if not maybe like a junior light heavyweight, and it looked like Kevin Lee looked like a featherweight. That's how big of a difference it was. And after just a 1-2 combination that Renat threw, I don't know if it was because Renat's just a super hard hitter. We've seen him in the 2 previous fights in the UFC that he would just out grapple you and just hold you down, but he just threw a 1-2 combination, boom boom bam, dropping Kevin Lee, going, and then immediately went for the guillotine. All right, and he trapped Kevin Lee's left arm and right arm, making sure that he had no way of defending it. And luckily, Herb Dean ended up stopping the fight because Kevin Lee was out cold. All right, and the first thing I said and I tweeted is that Kevin Lee is too small for 170 pounds. Now, what's next? I personally would like to see Kevin Lee fight Tony Ferguson in a rematch. All right, I know we saw that fight many years ago. Have that fight go on at 160 pounds or something like that, just because Kevin Lee can't make 170. He can make 170, but he can't hang with the boys at 170. All right, you put him with somebody with a Michael Morales, I think he will destroy him. You put him against a Jack Della Maddalena, Jack Della will destroy him. All right, I just think that 170 is not the right division for him. As for Renat Farakardimov, man, he is another Russian that's very scary, that has a good future at welterweight. The only problem is just who's going to want to fight this man, because it just seems like a lot of people are going to try to duck and run away from this fight, man, because this man is the real deal. Now, it'll be very interesting to see, who takes on the fights, just because he might be one of those guys that is going to have difficult times trying to find fights, and then also difficult times trying to get close enough to the rankings. But yeah, guys, that is what I have to say about UFC Vegas 76. This week, it is International Fight Week. I will try to put out a video. If not, then I'll try to put one out when I come back. I'll be going to Florida. But guys, really love speaking to you guys. It's always nice being behind camera and talking about fights. But until then, I am Flavo Rihanna, and I am blogging off for tonight. Please enjoy your night and have a good one. See ya.